How cool is it that I moved from the Bronx a couple of years ago, came up here to look at an apartment that a friend of mine told me about, and the apartment is right across the street from a theater. It's like I said yes to this place before I even talked to the landlords or did anything. Like, I just kind of knew this was meant to be. And as you can see, the homes are kind of beautiful here. It kind of feels like the West Village to me around here in Manhattan. So I feel pretty comfortable in the surroundings. This video is about how I'm kind of depressed, I think it's about what's going on in LA. But it's like bringing up bigger issues for me, because I'm thinking a lot about short form content, you know, like TikTok and Twitter or X or whatever you call it now, and even Instagram and Facebook, and even shorts on YouTube. Like, all of it for me is like, I think it's detrimental to our, how can I say this without sounding too grandiose about it, but I'm just going to be straight about how I feel. Like, I feel like it's really a negative thing, or is having a negative impact on our humanity, and also our ability to think, you know, to go deep, to deal with things that are happening in the world. I mean, I think these fires out in LA, which are devastating, like one of the worst natural disasters in the history of this country. It's so vast, it's burned so many acres, so many people have lost their homes. I think so far 24 people have lost their lives, and that's going to grow, because now they're starting to find remains of people. And I noticed that it's just kind of like going down the timeline, you know what I mean? I mean, for me, I can't stop thinking about it, because I know so many people who live out there. I have so many people who I love, who I'm close to out there, and I'm like purposely not reaching out to them all the time, because I know that, you know, they're dealing with enough. And, you know, it's like when somebody's sick in your family, or when you're sick and people keep contacting you, and you don't want to have to keep telling the same story over and over again, and you don't want to be in a position where you're making other people feel better for your tragedy. Like, it's enough just to be dealing with it, you know? I mean, it's important to check in with people and make sure they're okay, but you don't want to go overboard with it. But on the other hand, you don't want to forget about it, you know, you don't want to normalize it to the point that it's just another thing, you know? Like, you heard about a fire somewhere in a school in Texas or something like that. Like, this is a far-reaching tragedy that is going to have serious, long-term ramifications for one of the most important cities in the world. Los Angeles is one of the most important urban centers on the planet. One of the most, you know, influential places in the world. Of course, now the sun's coming out, so it's going to destroy my shot. Los Angeles is so significant to all of us, you know, whether you think it's significant to you or not. Unless you're completely living off the grid, you never watch TV, and you never go to the movies, and you don't listen to music, and you don't pay attention to cultural issues, like, unless you like live in the woods or live in a cave, the city of Los Angeles affects you. And so what's happening out there should be somewhat personal to you. And I just think, like, I think our brains are changing from the way that we're consuming news and consuming information, whether it be cable news, mainstream media, social media, TikTok, however you get your information. It's being dumbed down more and more. It's being, you know, turned into a phrase or a sentence. You know, it's being turned into letters. OMG. You know, we can't even say happy birthday anymore. It's like HBD. Everything is being, you know, squashed. And we're not contemplating anything. We're not considering anything. We're not feeling anything. Life is like a timeline. Things just like scroll down, and, you know, you're like, it's just surreal when you hear about the fires in Los Angeles, and then the next 2 seconds later you're watching a video that's making you laugh about a German short-hair pointer, you know? And I'm not making fun of German short-hair pointers, because I owned a German short-hair pointer for a long time, and I loved him more than anything in the world, but I just find it disturbing that things are so close together, you know what I mean? Like, it used to be that we were all watching the same news channel, we were all consuming the same thing, so we all kind of had to deliberate about stuff together, you know? We were seeing the same TV shows, we were seeing everything together, and then we were drawing from our own personal experiences how we interpreted that information. But now there's like, everybody has their own information, you know? And you live in your own little vacuum of, you know, people that you only agree with. And, you know, then there's all this misinformation. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of misinformation being spread about this fire, about what the government is and is not doing, you know, and I'm talking facts. And there are people who are supposed to be greatly respected at the jobs that they have, at the positions that they have, the power that they have, who are just straight up lying about stuff about, or, you know, saying something before they actually check it out, which can be really, really detrimental when you're talking about life and death situations. You know, when you're talking about people losing everything, including in many cases lives. But, you know, losing their homes, losing their things, losing their passports, losing their life's work. Their, you know, let's say somebody was writing a book, you know, and they might have lost everything. You know, maybe they had it backed up 15 times, but maybe they didn't have it backed up in the cloud. So maybe their computers burned, their paper burned, like everything burned. You know, that's the kind of thing that we should stop and really think about, you know. And I think that if you don't do that, if you don't stop what you're doing and consider what's going on, it becomes less important, you know, certainly to you. And I know a lot of people go, hey, it ain't got nothing to do with me. I don't live in LA. I don't know anybody in LA. But like I said, Los Angeles is a very important place. And even if it wasn't, you know, I mean, it could be argued, even though New Orleans is one of the most important cultural, iconic places in the world, it's not like a, you know, economic center of the world or anything like that. But when Hurricane Katrina hit, you know, we all had to stop for a minute. You know what I mean? That was kind of before this massive amount of social media that's out now. And still, a lot of people from Katrina have never recovered. You know, 9/11 hit, and I think it was really, you know, it's hard to explain to people what it was like for people who were in New York during that time, but still, you could tell that everybody throughout the world was shocked by that, you know. I don't feel the same way about these fires. It just doesn't seem that way to me. There's so much else going on. I guess part of it is because a lot of leaders in our country are not even talking about it, really, other than criticizing. But I digress. I don't want to talk about politics. I just think that if you're consuming media that's 1 second long, 1 sentence long, 12 seconds long, you're obviously not getting the whole story. You're not getting any context. You're not getting any kind of development of a story. And that can be very dangerous, you know, when it comes to news, you know, when it comes to things that are actually happening in the real world. And I also think that even when we're talking about art, fictional stories, you know, if you're not used to watching an entire film or an entire series on TV, if you're not used to reading a book, you know, I think that it's breaking your brain. You know, I think your brain is shrinking. I think your ability to understand things and really have empathy towards things, because the broadness of you is getting compressed into those short little sentences. You know, like you only have 120 characters or whatever it is, 140 something character. Like, it's not healthy. And I'm just feeling it now with this fire. I just feel like a lot of people where I am, I mean, I'm 3,000 miles away from Los Angeles, and nobody's even talking about it around here, you know? And I don't know, for me, I feel almost paralyzed. I feel certainly worried. And, you know, tomorrow and the next day are supposed to be really dangerous days because they're going to have hurricane force winds. That could exacerbate the situation a lot. And I'm just thinking about people like, how about people who've lost their homes, right? Like I saw a thing on the news this morning talking about, you know, they're working on these affordable loans to people to get themselves back on their feet. And I'm thinking, like, seriously? You're going to make people who've lost everything have another debt from rebuilding their home that they just lost, where there are things in that home that are 100% unrecoverable, irrevocable damage has been done. And you're going to make them have like a loan payment for the next 30 years to rebuild their house, like with all the money that's in this country? You can't just give them that. We as a country can't just give people what they need to rebuild. I just don't get it. I don't get it. Like, you lose everything because of a fire or a mudslide or a hurricane or an earthquake, and then your government, who's supposed to be looking out for you, is going to make you pay to get back to square one, where who knows what the situation is now as you even get back to square one. You know, you were probably not at square one before this happened for most people. Also, how about Los Angeles has this horrible homeless problem? What's that going to be like now? Because a lot of people are not going to be able to recover. A lot of people have spent their life savings keeping up their homes. And so now they can't even afford a loan to build a new house. Some of them might not even qualify. I don't even know what the qualifications will be, but I'm quite sure, you know, that a bank is not going to just give the money to anybody. But the government should. Just like we should all have health care. I mean, I don't know. I just think that, you know, I started this video talking about short form content, and I really do think that it's so relevant. I think that we are becoming closer and closer to a community, you know, like a society of sociopaths, you know, where we're just like, you know, like we're in a daze just scrolling through, you know, Instagram shorts, YouTube shorts, TikTok. I don't even have TikTok, so I don't even know what it looks like, but we're like becoming these mindless drones where nothing is actually meaningful, you know? The only thing that's meaningful is if you scroll down and you see your favorite artist has a new song, or you hear a song that you like, you know? But if somebody says there's a fire, there's a mudslide, there's this, there's that, you know, something important, it doesn't faze you because it goes by just as quick as everything else. Nothing is holding any kind of gravitas, you know? I think it's a problem. And personally, I don't like it. That's why I'm committed to long-form content. It's not because I'm stubborn, and it's not because I don't know how to tell a short story. It's that I believe that as human beings, we need to know why we're here, where we came from, what we want to do, what we hope to achieve, where we're going, how we're going to get there, what are the obstacles that we have to overcome to get there, you know, who do we need to help us. I think that these are like really important life skills, not just artist skills. And that's why every story that I develop is pretty long, because life is long if you're lucky. You know, if it's short, you're very unlucky. And so I'm trying my hardest to contribute to what I feel is something that is using everything that we have the capabilities to be, you know, that doesn't sell us short and, you know, stupid us down. Like, I'm taking for granted that my audience, the people watching my work, are really intelligent and really discerning, you know, and are really interested in learning about things, you know, and discovering something new and meeting new people if I create characters. And I think that that will prepare you to deal with things like what's happening in LA right now, which, you know, is something that we all need to think about, because it has a lot to do with a lot of things, you know. Climate change. Have we ever experienced this many fires throughout the world, throughout the country certainly, but throughout the whole world? In the history of us being able to document anything, we haven't. Obviously, the earth is getting warmer, things are happening. We have to be able to consider that and think about that, and then as a community come together and figure out what we can do to try to slow that down and maybe stop it, figure out how we can live together with nature and this earth. Because you know what? The earth is going to be fine. We're the ones who are going to suffer if we don't start paying attention to this stuff. Even if somebody started this fire and somebody's responsible for it, the way that it took off, the way that it's been burning like crazy is because it's so dry out there. And it's like ripe to burn down. Anyway, short form content, I'm against it. And I'm not against fun. I'm not against quick little things here and there, but what it's doing is devaluing movies. Like, have you seen the movie Killers of the Flower Moon with Robert De Niro, a Martin Scorsese film? First of all, it's a true story, part of the history of this country, so everybody should watch it. And it's really long. It's like 3.5 hours, so there's your warning. But you should watch it, I could recommend a lot of shows that would broaden your horizons, make you a better person, definitely, if you watch them. Have you watched The Wire on HBO? It's an old series. It's probably the greatest series that's ever been on television. It's also like textbook for how to tell stories, how to develop characters. Have you ever seen Station 11? I talk about it all the time. Have you ever seen a film called Cinema Paradiso, an old film? Ever watched any Jim Jarmusch films? Have you seen Down by Law? There's so many great films. I think it's really important to watch films, to watch shows, to study art, to go to museums, to go to the movies. I was guilty of not doing a lot of that stuff when I was young because I was just a jock, I was a jock who was a closet artist because I taught myself how to play the guitar when I was like 5. And I was actually embarrassed about it because I was a boy, it wasn't celebrated at that time. But as I've gotten older, I'm making up for lost time, spending a lot of time in museums, looking at photography books, watching, like devouring so many films. I'm watching like the history of film, studying cinematographers. My life has been in the theater for like 15 straight years. It's really important to go see the theater, to read scripts, to read books, Suddenly, later in my life, I'm totally into Hemingway. It's really important, Hemingway or TikTok, Scorsese, Spike Lee, or X. Come on. Read, go to the movies, go to the theater, go to an art gallery, go to museums, do these things. And then when you're scrolling through your timeline every morning when you wake up and you're checking out what's going on in the world, when you see something in a city like Los Angeles, sit down and stay there for a while. See if maybe there's something you could do to help. If you have a lot of money, like if you have unbelievable amounts of money where you have like 4 houses and 12 cars and, travel the world all the time, how about contributing $1 million to Los Angeles, or $100,000, or $10, or whatever? Or how about contributing some clothes, doing something? If you live in LA and you're, fortunate enough to not be near where all the devastation is, maybe you can do something tangible to help. We need each other, now more than ever in the history of this country. We're so divided. We need each other. We need community. The most beautiful thing about this country is the diversity of it, how we all, not only do we look different and we love differently and we, have different backgrounds culturally, but, we also believe in things politically different, religiously different, and yet we have been able to live together. I know that I've been friends with people who are diametrically opposed to a lot of things that I believe in, but we don't impose them upon one another, and we're able to live in peace and live happily and even have good times with one another. But it seems like that kind of description is gone now, at least in this country. You know, now we're just at war with each other. You know, we hate each other. I never thought that we would be like the Croats and the Serbs, you know, like when Yugoslavia went down. And if you don't know that, Google it and learn about it. Because we're becoming that. That's an embarrassment to this country. So anyway, that's all I wanted to talk about today is, you know, the short form content I think is part and parcel of the whole thing, that we're breaking our brains, you know, we're getting dumber, you know, we're getting shallower, we're getting narrower, you know, we are losing our depth, we're losing our compassion, you know, we're losing our integrity. You know, we're so tied to what we believe in that we're willing to lie to keep what we believe should be kept, or just turn a blind eye to it at best. And that ain't good, you know, because we should be about humanity, about one another. We should be about caring about each other and taking care of one another. And so I watched a video this morning where somebody said I'm a guy who gives the middle finger to the algorithm. I don't really do that, but I do give the middle finger to short form content, even though, again, I don't think there's anything wrong with it in moderation, you know, just like sugar, you know, I got a sweet tooth, you know, I love, like, I'm always on the hunt for the perfect muffin, you know, I love chocolate, I am chocolate. But 95% of the time, I eat like a science project, you know. I really take care of my body. I'm all wheatgrass and coconuts and greens and more greens. You know, I'm all organic. You know, I'm grass-fed. I'm all of that. But every once in a while, I go get a chocolate chip muffin. I love to eat pancakes, even though I eat buckwheat, organic blueberry with organic coconut and real maple syrup. But I try to make good choices. But, you know, I don't eat anything in packages, because I want to keep it real, just like my personality. I'm trying to keep it real, even in my food. But you know what? I'm not opposed to eating coconut custard pie. I'm not opposed to a piece of chocolate cake every once in a while. I love ice cream, even though I only buy coconut-based ice cream, but I keep digressing. You know what I'm saying. Everything in moderation, that's bad. But all the good things, forget the moderation. The more good, the better. The more empathy, the better. The more integrity, the better. The more compassion, the better. The more just straight up caring, the better. You know, and the more patience, the more we can sit down and just be with one another for a while and be, you know, some people can't even be silent for 10 seconds. They just can't do it. They cannot sit and not have their phone on, or, you know, their TV on, or radio or something. Like, they can't be quiet. They can't be present, you know. Some people can't even meet with people in person. Do you really know your friends? It's a weird world. You know, I hope for a little bit more humanity. By the way, and I'll end the video with this, this is why I love live theater so much. It's like, and in my case, solo theater, like one person on stage. Like, there's this one guy on stage, you know, and there's nothing else there, and he's telling a story to a bunch of people in an audience. It could be 50 people, it could be 1,500 people. But there's just one guy telling this story. And you have to sit there and take it all in. You have to pay attention. And that guy has to pay attention to you and take the responsibility to make sure that you're never bored. And that there's an exchange and not just putting something on people. Because there is an exchange. Even though I'm the one telling the story, if the audience isn't paying attention, energy is real. I feel that. And so that's why I love live theater. It's indisputable. That's what it is. There's somebody on stage that's a real person with some lights, you know, and that's it. And these are real people sitting in the audience, and we're together. And not everybody in that audience prays to the same God, believes in the same things culturally, you know, like, they're from different countries. They might speak different languages as their first language. I mean, and that to me is the most beautiful thing about that audience. That's why I love live theater. That's why I love this country. Yeah. So that's a good time to stop. Think about it.